So welcome everyone to the live event, which is the process of chocolate making at Kylemore. Today, I'm your host, Tomás. I'm joined by my co-host, Indira.
Hello,
and we're going to be talking to you everything about Kylemore. We even have Kylemore's very own marketing manager, Jessica Ridge, here, who's going to be telling you about the rich history of Kylemore and then a little bit about the chocolate making. So I'll pass it over to Jessica and she can start her little PowerPoint.
Lovely. Thank you, Tomás and Indira. Thank you for inviting me to speak here today. And thank you to everyone for coming along and listening to this. So my name is Jessica Ridge. I'm the marketing manager here in Kylemore Abbey. And today I'm just going to talk to you a small bit about the history of Kylemore, its rich history of the entire estate and the many generations it's gone through since its foundation. And then kind of more specifically on the chocolate kitchen and how that came to be and the ethos that fed into its formation and what it's doing today and what we hope to do with it in the future. So I'll dive straight into the history. So Kylemore Abbey dates back to 1867 when Mitchell Henry, a Mancunian surgeon and a wealthy businessman, came here on honeymoon with his wife, Margaret, and they fell in love with the area. They fell in love with Kylemore specifically, and they decided to set up a home here. So before then, it had been owned by brothers called the Wilberforce brothers, and they had a hunting lodge, just a small lodge on the edge of the lake. And Mitchell decided to dedicate a whole castle to his wife. So he built this beautiful baronial style castle, and he took over 22,000 acres of land in the area. And from that, he had great plans and a great vision for Kylemore and for all of Ireland, really. So Mitchell was Mancunian, as I said. He grew up in Manchester, but he was of Irish descent, and his wife, Margaret Vaughan, was from County Down. And they very much considered themselves to be entirely Irish, and they loved Ireland, and they wanted to use Kylemore as an expression of that love. They also wanted it to be a nesting place for their family. So they had 9 children in total. 8 of them they had before they came to Kylemore and a further one after.
Oh, sorry, Jessica, you are actually muted there. I think. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Perfect.
Perfect. You can probably hear the bells now as well going off in the background. It's the call to prayer at 12 o'clock. Yeah, so the history of Kylemore, I'll continue there. I hope that you got everything. If you missed anything, just please ask me to go back and I'll do a small bit more. So they saw it as a place of social good as well. So, you know, the phrase to Heller to Connacht wasn't the most arable land. All of Kylemore was made of bogland and very rugged mountainside. And Mitchell Henry thought it would be a great opportunity to bring some science to the area. And so he tried out many different farming methods, including, you know, burning lime and using the lime then to spread on the ground and make it more arable. And from that, he created an 8-acre walled garden. So that was just one kind of example of the innovation he brought to Kylemore. He also, Connemara was maybe a small bit later getting electricity, but Kylemore would have been the very first places to get it. And he did that through using hydroelectric plants. So he harnessed the power of the water of the mountain streams and the rivers in the locality. And from that, he created, made electricity for the entire estate, which was incredibly impressive at the time. He was very attuned into the needs of the tenants on the estate. When they first came here in the 40s, it was just after the Great Famine, and there had been a number of cholera outbreaks in the area, and they were very touched by the plight of the people here. And Mitchell Henry went on to do a lot of advocacy work for Irish people, but at the time he kind of focused on his tenants at first. It very often made him unpopular with other landlords in Ireland because he was so good to his tenants here, and there was this anticipation growing of being good to your tenants. And he did things like in a year where the crops failed, he decided not to gather rent. He let people just try and survive that year, and the following year pick up paying rent again. So Mitchell and Margaret had planned to have a long and happy life here, and unfortunately that wasn't to be. While on holidays in Egypt on the Nile, Margaret contracted dysentery and unfortunately passed away, leaving her kids and her devoted husband behind her. They brought Margaret back, and as an act of devotion, Mitchell built the Neo-Gothic church over in the woodland on the path back from Kylemore Castle. And it's a very beautiful building. It's a miniature cathedral. It's very feminine and soft features. So it's made mainly of sandstone, and it has all the marbles of Ireland to signify her love of Ireland. It replaces the Gothic grotesque figures with angels and flowers and things of great beauty like Margaret. And she's interred in a small mausoleum just a small bit back away from there. And Mitchell, when he did pass away, was brought back and interred with her there. And so it's a very romantic, sweet story, but also very, very tragic. So after Margaret passed away, Mitchell Henry continued to work as an MP. So he was an MP for Galway, a member of Parliament. And again, he fought for the social good and for the rights of people of Ireland. And he was a key advocate of Home Rule. And he very much pushed for that as he worked. He lost heart quite a bit after Margaret died, and even more so after one of their daughters passed away on the estate as well in another tragic accident, a carriage accident this time. And after that, he lost heart. He didn't have the same love, I suppose, for Kylemore, and he moved back to England. And so the estate went up for sale and was bought by the Duke and Duchess of Manchester. Now, the Duke and Duchess were a very, very glamorous couple. As you can see, that's the Duchess on the right there. And she was, that's her dressed for the coronation of King Edward VII. They were here for 10 years. They, probably not unlike Harry and Meghan, had a very, very public romance. She was the daughter of she was an heiress of an American railroad tycoon. So she came with great wealth, but her father very much disagreed with their marriage, and the couple actually eloped in Paris. And her father, Eugene Zimmerman, from Cincinnati, he then bought the Kylemore estate for the couple. He hoped that it would ground the Duke somewhat. The Duke had quite a reputation at that stage as a ladies' man and as a drinker and a gambler. And unfortunately, that was to be their undoing, because he lost all of their money. There is one story that the castle was gambled one night, and that's how they lost it. He lost it in a card game, but there's nothing really to corroborate that, so we don't know exactly. But from all intents and purposes, despite all of that, he was kind of popular locally. There's some people who are very dedicated to the Henrys who saw him as a great departure, but other people found him quite relatable because he was a bit of a lad and he was good crack by all intents and purposes. So again, social good did continue somewhat during their stage. While they were very different to anyone else who's lived on the estate, Helena Zimmerman, the Duchess in particular, she was a great advocate for women's rights. And there is some information we're finding now that she used to set up women's groups and work with local women in the area to try and empower them that bit more. So after they lost the estate, it went into caretakers' hands for 7 years, and in that time it became quite overgrown. They had to sell all the contents of the castle, so the castle was pretty much stripped bare. And Kylemore was left pretty much unattended for 7 whole years. And so that brings us on then to the story of the Benedictine nuns, and kind of more close to the chocolate. So the Benedictine nuns were founded in Ypres in Belgium, and they were known then as the Irish Dames of Ypres. And Saint Benedict was, his key ethos was education. And so the nuns there ran a very prestigious boarding school, mainly for Irish Catholic girls. So girls would have been sent from all over Ireland where they couldn't get an education, and they were sent to Ypres in Belgium, where they would be educated. And these were girls of all ages. And then when World War I broke out, Ypres was one of the towns probably most affected. You'll see there in the picture on the right, that is the abbey that the nuns would have lived in Ypres in Belgium, and it was completely shelled. So the nuns had to pack up and flee as refugees. And there is actually a book just recently launched about the history of the nuns here in Kylemore by two scholars from UCD, and they have accounts of the nuns at the time who had to flee, and they give very vivid descriptions of literally bombs falling behind them as they were trying to escape. So it's quite a dramatic story, but the nuns' story is one of perseverance and of survival, and this was just one example of that. So then when they did flee, they first spent some time in the UK in orders there, other Benedictine orders there. Then they came to Macmine in Wexford, and they spent some time there before finally coming to Connemara. So on the 4th of December 1920, the nuns landed here in Kylemore, and they fell in love with the place. They knew this would be their home. This would be a perfect place of serenity and ecology and contemplative ecology, and it'd be a perfect spot for their abbey. So they bought the estate for £45,000, which is not a small sum now, and it certainly wasn't then. And they have been here for the past 101 years. So last year was the centenary year of their arrival, and it was to be a massive year of celebrations, but obviously that couldn't go ahead. But we're hoping as the year goes on, we'll be able to pick up some of the celebrations that we have planned for that. So coming to Kylemore, the nuns very much involved themselves in the area immediately. Ora et labora is Latin for prayer and work, and that's their key ethos as a community. So that comes through this particular order with education and enterprise. And within 3 years of coming to Kylemore, they had set up an international boarding school like they had in Ypres. And they had girls of all ages from all over the world coming to Ireland to learn, a whole curriculum. And as time went on, they started to bring in more and more day girls. The girls of the people who worked on the estate could always come to school here. And as it went on, it was more and more local girls and what we call day students. So I was one of them myself, and Tomás, our host, his mother was also. So there's a great community locally and around the world of former pupils of Kylemore Abbey School, which is a lovely connection to have, an international connection to have. Now, running an estate of this size was never easy, and so they had to find other ways to innovate and to create enterprise within the estate. And in the 60s and 70s, they launched a kind of a guest house. So it would be during the summer months when the girls weren't in school, and they would use the dormitories where the boarders lived to welcome couples. And we get a lot of feedback now on Facebook and that from people who said, my parents went there on honeymoon in the 60s, and they tell us their stories and how it was there, because essentially the Benedictine nuns are an enclosed order. We see more of them now, and they're a little more public, but they're still quite private. And so to get that access to stay with them in the abbey was very, very special. And it's lovely to hear that feedback from people. Then in the 90s, the school was getting smaller, and it could be contained in all of the upper rooms of the castle and kind of at the back of the castle itself. And because of that, the ground floor could then be opened to the public, and so it became a visitor experience. At that time, they also opened the cafe and the tea rooms, and they began making the fuchsia pottery that we still have on sale here today and is still handmade on site here today. And that became how they could fund this entire estate. It also became a priority to really restore the heritage. So they had done a lot of work on the castle itself, but the 8 acres in the garden and the neo-Gothic church had fallen into almost ruin. And so with the help of grant aid from the government and with the help of donors, they began bringing these back to life. So the Gothic church was then reopened in 1996, and the Victorian Wall Gardens in 2000. So originally there had been 21 glass houses in the gardens where they used to be able to grow pineapples and bananas and everything. They'd fallen into ruin, but we have 2 of those fully restored now, and we're continuously working towards restoring the rest of those. So in 2010, the school closed. Borders had kind of been, as a type of school, boarding schools were getting smaller, and they weren't as viable as they had been before, particularly given that it used to be the nuns who did all of the teaching. And as the years went on, there was fewer vocations, and there was less nuns to teach in the school. So it eventually closed in 2010, to the great disappointment of the community here, and also to the wider community. And especially because education is so important to the nuns, but they found other ways to carry it on. So Sister Carol, who taught the music up in the school, she continued to teach music to people from all over Connemara, and she does choirs and she teaches piano and singing and a whole host of things. And she also has a range of music books for primary schools. We also have Notre Dame University from Indiana, and they have part of their global campus here in Kylemore. So they bring students over from the US to learn about Irish studies and Irish culture, and they do that here. We also, as part of the tourist destination, we get people who are maybe studying tourism up in Sligo. They come and work here, or we get horticultural students from all over the world come to work with our head gardener Anya Golka and learn how to, I suppose, maintain a Victorian garden. So education is still very much continuing. But the chocolate kitchen in particular, and this is probably the part, if we were doing a physical presentation, I'd give you some chocolate, but instead I'm just going to let your mouths water as we talk about it. So Sister Genevieve here, she was the school nurse while the school was open, and after the school closed, she found herself with all this extra time, but we also found ourselves with extra rooms and extra resources. So the art room from the school got turned into a soap kitchen, where Sister Genevieve taught herself how to make all these different soaps, which they could wrap and sell in our craft shop. And she also took over the home economics kitchen. So that was equipped with all of the, cookers and ovens and all the different metal bowls and everything that they needed. So from that, she decided to start making chocolate. Now, it started very, very small. Beginning, she was kind of teaching herself, and then she went and she studied with Benoit Lorge, who's a renowned chocolatier. He's based in Kerry, and she went down and she studied with him, and she became a chocolatier herself. The education continues within the chocolate kitchen also, because like Jodie, who you see in the picture there, she is a past pupil, and she came back and she trained as a chocolatier with Sister Genevieve. We have a workaway program where people come and live for a couple of weeks here in Kylemore, and they train in how to make the soap and how to make the chocolate. And we also get nuns from all over the world who come, and they learn how to maintain their own monasteries and their own abbeys by learning how to make these products and being able to sell them themselves, so that they can continue their work and they can continue to function and survive and thrive as a religious order wherever they are in the world. And just kind of a throwback to, it was the home economics kitchen during the time of the school. Before that, in Mitchell Henry's time, the building in which we now make the chocolate was actually, it would have been where they kept all the carriages in Mitchell Henry's time. So they would have had carriages, and they had the fire engine in there, because during Mitchell Henry's time, he actually had a full fire engine on the estate. One of his sons, Lorenzo, was very into trying out these different things, and so they built a whole water network, and so that's where that was housed. It was actually the only building that during Mitchell Henry's time ever caught fire, which was ironic because obviously the fire engine was inside it, and so it did a lot of damage because they couldn't save it, which is a very, very cruel irony. So on to the process of actually making the chocolate. I'm probably not the best person to talk to you about this. One of our chocolatiers would be far more qualified, or Tomás, I'm sure, will. He used to do behind the scenes tours into our chocolate kitchen, so I'm sure he has an even closer knowledge of it. But basically, the nuns choose the best, the finest chocolate that they can get. They weigh it out, and depending on the particular blend, they temper it. So they temper it between 41 and 46 degrees, depending on the type of chocolate. Dark chocolate needs to be tempered at a lower rate than a lower degree Celsius than milk chocolate. And they run that through a machine that you'll see in a moment. And from that, they either fill their molds or into a bowl where they mix in their ingredients. We have a few different ranges, say honeycomb, fruit and nut. We do macaroon on and off, so little bits of coconut, or we do filled ones. And we also do sheep, so they go into little sheep molds. After that, either the next part would be the ingredients are added, be that the salt or the honeycomb, or it's left to cool. So we have massive refrigeration units in which they go in. If it's something like the honeycomb or something that's flat, instead of going straight into the fridge, it goes onto the marble. So it's cooled marble where they can roll out and add in the honeycomb, which you'll see in a video in just a moment. Any additional ingredients are added, they're left to cool, and then they're hand packaged by members of the Benedictine community. So at the moment, we actually have 3 members of the Benedictine community are working in the chocolate kitchen. We have Sister Genevieve, whose brainchild the whole thing was. And we also have 2 of our newer members, so members who only joined in the past year. So it's very exciting to have all of these new members joined and learning how to craft this. So it's hand packaged and then it's ready for sale in our shop. So currently we just sell in our physical shop, which is closed due to COVID, but we have an online store as well, and that's where we do most of our selling at the moment. So in the next slide, you'll see a small video. This was a video that was actually put together. Tomás, who is one of our hosts today, he filmed a lot of it, and it was taken by Tourism Ireland, and last year they put it out across all of their channels internationally for World Chocolate Day. So it gives you kind of a brief overview of how our chocolate honeycomb, which won the silver medal award at the Bloss and Heron Awards for great flavours. So this will give you just a small little glimpse inside the chocolate kitchen and how that's made. Again, I can only apologise for anyone who is craving chocolate now, and it's only 12 o'clock in the day. I'm very sorry, and I'm sorry that I can't physically give it to you at the moment, but hopefully again. So what makes the chocolate here unique? Well, it is handmade by the Benedictine nuns, and that would be our main and our unique selling point, I suppose. So there you see our team of Sister Genevieve in the middle. On the left is Sister Jeanne, and on the right is Sister Mariangela. And together they create, it's all handcrafted, it's very small batches. So you know what you're getting has been made with care and with dedication. We have kind of a stable line of what we produce. So that would be the plain bars and the honeycomb and the chocolate sheep, but we also add in other limited edition things like our lucky lambs, which I'll talk to you about in a moment. We've also added to our range, so we have like sea salt, and it's been a great product. We get it from Achill, we get the Achill sea salt, and we use that. So it's a great situating factor as well, and it's very in keeping with the nuns' ethos of the place and our sense of Connemara and its place by the ocean, its place on the wild Atlantic Bay. We have tried other products as well, but we have to be very mindful, I suppose, at all times that we're in keeping with what we are. So, for example, gin chocolate was all the rage there a couple of years ago, and it was considered, and we tried it, and we felt that it wasn't really fitting with who we are. So we're constantly adding in different ways, and trying to see how we can grow and develop. One thing that we have found has been huge is the visibility of our chocolate kitchen. So it's not, people are very discerning, and they want to know that what they're getting is handcrafted as it has been said it is. So right now we have big windows into our chocolate kitchen, so you can look in and you can see the chocolate being packaged, you can see the chocolate being made. We have some informational panels there for people. But a couple of years ago, we also started behind the scenes tours. And so one of our guides would take small groups of people. It was an add-on to your ticket. And they would go into the chocolate kitchen and they would see the nuns working, and they'd get to taste a bit of the chocolate and really kind of understand the size of the enterprise, which is really quite small. Then they go into the soap kitchen and they would see the nuns working there in the soap kitchen and how that's made. And of course, as you walk in, you're hit with the incredible smell of the soapery. And then they'd go down to the pottery as well and see it's a layperson now who makes that. Mary, she's been making it here for almost 40 years. And she makes the beautiful fuchsia pottery, and they would see that working, see it being turned on the wheel, see it being fired in the kiln. And so we found that people had a much better and truer appreciation of the products from our doing that. And hopefully it's something we'll be able to do again when we reopen. Obviously we couldn't do it in 2020. The spaces are quite small, and so once things get back to normal, hopefully we'll be able to continue that, because it's a really, really wonderful way of people seeing the community's involvement, seeing the hands-on, how it all happens, and it gives them a true appreciation, I think, of the product. So one of the new lines that we've gone with this year is our Lucky Lambs, and they've been very, very popular. They've been one of our most popular items probably ever on our online shop. They're kind of a fun Easter egg alternative. They're very appealing to children and families, and that was one of the major changes that we saw in 2020. We got more domestic visitors in 2020 than we had ever done before, so more people from Ireland. Typically we would get overseas markets, so America, Germany and France being our main ones. And we'd also kind of get an older demographic, so people who may be retired and they're making this one big trip to Ireland, whereas this year we saw so many Irish families traveling. Also, Easter is a very special time for us here in Kylemore. Easter and Halloween, we usually do a big event that's very big regionally for local families to come for the day. And there's Easter bunnies and there's face painting and there's traditional games and crafts going on. And this year we couldn't do it. So we wanted to bring Kylemore to people in a different way this Easter. And so this is one of them. So as well as being kind of adorable sheep, almost like a hollow, like an Easter egg, and then those 3 little sheep inside them, 1 in every 50 also has a scroll that will give the winner a full day out in Kylemore and a hamper of Kylemore goodies. So it's proved very successful, as I've said, and it's a great way to engage people in Kylemore in a different way and kind of bring the chocolate to them in a more accessible, fun way. So we've already gotten some coverage for it. Lucinda O'Sullivan had a piece just this Sunday in the Sunday Independent, and we'll also be doing interviews with Galway Bay FM and Connemara Community Radio over the next couple of days and weeks. So hopefully they are limited editions, so we're hoping we won't run out. Well, we are hoping we will run out, but we're hoping we'll get we'll get a few more on board so that we can get a little further towards Easter. So that's very much the history, the chocolate kitchen, and it brings us right up to where we are today. So today, Kylemore is principally the home of the Benedictine nuns. The whole estate is their monastery and is their place of worship and of serenity. And they share that with people through retreats and through hospitality. And so the hospitality side of that is very much the visitor experience. We're one of the top visitor experiences in Ireland and the second most visited outside of the Greater Dublin region. It's a 1,000 acres estate, so people can come here and spend the whole day. It consists mainly of the Abbey, which is the castle, and we have a new visitor experience there. It's called From Generation to Generation, and it goes through the various stories that I've kind of talked to you about today, and a lot of the images that you would have seen reflect that visitor experience inside. We also have the Neo-Gothic church, which is open, and it has performances, choral performances, music. We've hosted a few big events from there recently, like Other Voices were there, and we also had a Ciolo Kylemore, which was for St. Bridget's Day, and it was all Irish musicians, and they were playing on the estate, including the Gothic church. We have the Victorian Wall Garden, which is a 6.5 acre walled garden, and we have 1.5 acres then just outside of that as well. And that's beautiful all year round. It's a heritage garden, by which we mean everything that's grown in it was propagated before the year 1901. So it's all plants that were found in the Victorian era. So it's very unique in that way. It also includes the longest herbaceous border in Ireland. So outside of that then as well, last year we introduced the Connemara ponies, which have been very, very popular, particularly one which will be going up to the Oris to Michael D. Higgins in a couple of months. So that's very, very exciting for us, and it got great traction last year. So hopefully that'll be happening this May, and we'll get a pony and a foal up there. And we have 3 food outlets and a retail outlet on site as well as a whole host of walks, more of which we're opening this summer. So in 2019, I suppose we welcomed over 500,000 people to Kylemore. As I said, mainly overseas. Last year, obviously, the numbers dropped back dramatically, but it was brilliant to see so many Irish people come back and re-engage with Kylemore and re-engage with its history and its place in Irish history. So we continue, and we hope that 2021 will see more of what 2020 brought in terms of the great engagement from the Irish audience and interest and just a furthering of the ethos and an understanding of the ethos of Kylemore and the community here. And I suppose onwards and upwards from 2020 for everyone. And we hope to get people back into the chocolate kitchen and getting to understand and see the chocolate being made, engaging with the community of nuns here and enjoying Kylemore on and into the future. So thank you very much for listening. I hope I didn't fire through that too quickly, and that you all enjoyed the history of Kylemore and of the chocolate kitchen. So I think Tomás and Indira are going to take some questions now if we have any.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for that really good presentation. And I do hope anyone that's watching, you did learn something about Kylemore. We did put a link for the online shop, so if you are feeling a bit hungry after that beautiful videos and everything, there is the link there. If there's any questions for Jessica, put them into the comments there and we should be able to answer them.
Hopefully.
Or if anyone wants to come on and speak. I think you're just muted there, Monica.
The famous words, you're muted. Thanks, Thomas. Jessica, that was wonderful. It was so interesting. Your main target market is the tourists, obviously, and the overseas. But to me, Kylemore has a special place for Irish people as well. And have you targeted Irish retail outlets with your products as well, I wondered?
We're hoping to do more of that. So we have kind of a few, like at McCambridge's in Galway. We went to a couple more in Dublin, Cavestons and Rowley's in Dublin this year, and we're hoping to spread out a small bit more. I suppose the production is quite small, particularly in the chocolate and the soap. So we'll have to see how we can manage that going forward. But certainly in our jams and in our baking mixes and those things that we can make on a larger scale, we will be trying to push out to other areas as well. Yeah, and other I suppose sites similar to ourselves.
And just wondering, and I know you've limited capacity, but have you thought of diversifying into any other products, like wool, weaving, or anything else like that?
Well, actually, as you say that, we're working at the moment with making a blanket, so a kind of more specific blanket with Foxford woolen mills. So we're hoping that something that kind of carries the Kylemore brand, carries the ethos of Kylemore, but it is a bit different. We're also looking into having our characters, so be it our pigs, our Kuna pigs, or our Connemara ponies, and applying them across different products. So cups and tea towels and other things that people can kind of engage in Kylemore in different ways with different products. So we're working at the moment in developing all these ideas. And I suppose one of the upsides that you could almost say to the likes of 2020 and this early part of 2021 is because we haven't have had all the people here, we've had the time to kind of stop and think about how we can develop and how we can grow Kylemore in different ways, and how we can meet the needs of the domestic market and not just the overseas tourist. And our products has been a key part of that, because our products, we very much, the likes of the chocolate and the soap was happening separately, but everything else that was part of the tourist attraction was very much tied up in the attraction. And so now that we're stopping and we can take a break, we can really assess what it is they want and how we meet that and how we make it true to Kylemore at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. If there's anyone else that has any questions about Kylemore, any history, let us know. We should hopefully be able to answer it.
We've had it.
Jessica, it's Jack here. Lovely presentation. I really enjoyed it. I joined a couple of minutes late there. Just wondering how long you've been working for Kylemore.
I've been working in marketing for 1.5 years, but while I was at college, I used to work in the shop, no more than Tomás. So I've been here kind of on and off for, I suppose, the best part of 7 years, with 1.5 years now focused here in marketing. I mentioned then as well, I actually went to school here as well, so I'm very, so I have a great awareness of the place and I'm very invested in it.
That's lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
If that's all the questions, if there's any more, I mean, we could conclude it here. Thank you very much once again, Jessica, for the really good presentation and taking your time out of the day to do this. And thank you everyone else for coming and watching the presentation. I do hope you learned something about Kylemore.
Yeah, and please always feel free. The website is there, but also we're on all the social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So always feel free to drop us a message as well. If you have any further questions, I'd be more than happy to reply to them. And thank you, Tomás and Indira, for inviting me along, and everyone for your questions and for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a good day now.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tomás and Indira. Thank you.
Thank you.